Well, we're back talking about Xbox, and yesterday's events where Xbox closed for Bethesda Studios really gave me some time to reflect on the history of this company. It's extremely rare you all see me that pissed off in videos. I typically just keep the emotions in check, not only because I feel gaming lacks a lot of level-headed voices, but also for when I am authentically, genuinely pissed off, I just feel at complete liberty to tee off because I almost never do. I feel like we're in a day and age with fake outrage, people trying to farm clicks just by pretending to be pissed off at things. That's my approach. So yeah, this video may be tame in comparison, but I can't promise that certain topics won't set me off. But as I was reflecting, I was thinking of the original Xbox, one of my first ever gaming consoles, and how you couldn't pull me from that thing, man. I mean, the exclusives on that system were incredible and so weird at that. I think of Oddworld Munch's Odyssey, one of my favorite games ever. I think of Death Row, one of the most underrated games ever. And then you look at the Xbox 360 and how it was just a timeless period for gaming. You know, everyone has a memory with the Xbox 360, Xbox Live Party Chat, multiplayer gaming. Nowadays, you look at some of the JRPGs that Xbox got exclusively, and I think today's fans would faint looking at something like Lost Odyssey and going, y'all had an exclusive Final Fantasy game from the creators of Final Fantasy? That's insane to think about. But that was what Xbox was capable of. And you look at them in these last two generations between Xbox One and the series consoles, it just feels like those moments there were pure lightning in a bottle moments, and it's so hard to fathom how they could ever get back to those glory days, even with an exciting slate of upcoming games. When you think of Fable, when you think of games like, hey, Fallout remasters, maybe a Fallout 5, even when I think of stuff like that, I don't associate it with any sort of Xbox excitement. They're just games to me now, and I think that symbolizes a lot of the disconnect from the brand that many have experienced. And it's a bummer. I know many people associate my channel as like, you're an Xbox channel. Dude, I'm a gamer. I like video games, and I like when video game companies thrive, especially ones who are taking really interesting risks. And when they walk back on them for really safe options that I think are going to be boring in a couple of years, it's extremely frustrating, especially when studios that pay the price, it was of no fault of theirs for certain decisions that were made that led them to this demise. Nonetheless, we're going to get a little deeper into that today because IGN had a report on Redfall and some planned updates for the game that have now been shut down. One in particular, I have to say, I am very upset did not make it out because it was arriving very soon. We have updates on Perfect Dark, where the initiative just continues to piss away time and budget, and I don't know how they got such a long leash compared to these other teams, but we'll get into that. We have execs cozying up and coddling other execs on Twitter. Dude, it makes me absolutely sick to my stomach. We'll talk about all of it, but ladies and gentlemen, welcome. Consider subscribing. Let's start off at the top here. Arcane Austin was working on a big Redfall update for May before Microsoft ditched the game and closed the studio. The now abandoned Redfall had a roadmap of support that was actively being worked on here before Microsoft scrapped all development and closed its developer, IGN can reveal. Arcane Austin was working on DLC and updates for the game with the expectation they would release until very recently, IGN understands, suggesting Microsoft's internal announcement today, or yesterday in this case, it was closing the developer as well as Hi-Fi Rush Studio Tango Gameworks came as a shock to staff. If you sign on Twitter, you'll see for yourself. No one saw this coming. This wasn't one of those moments where it's just we as the gamers didn't really see it arriving. I mean, you can maybe, again, from the outside looking in, see Redfall and how bad it was for Xbox and justify it, but I feel like many of us understood, oh, the time has passed for Redfall developer Arcane Austin to be shut down 1 year later, and here they are doing exactly that. The article continues, IGN was told that the now canceled Hero Pass content, which was set to add 2 new characters to the vampire co-op shooter, was scheduled for release this Halloween. If it had come out then, the Hero Pass would have released a year and a half after Redfall suffered a disastrous launch and with an ever-shrinking player base. Reached by IGN, representatives for Xbox and Bethesda declined to comment. However, the offline mode failed to materialize. IGN understands Redfall's May update would have added the ability to play offline, which in turn would have helped with keeping the game alive in the future. Unfortunately for its players, it will never see the light of day. Hi, it's me, probably #1 Redfall hater. This is bullshit, all right? This is bullshit because this is what I'm talking about with preservation. It's not just about preserving talent, as I talked about yesterday, it's also about preserving the software. Redfall is a mistake Xbox and gamers should remember. It shouldn't just be forgotten to the sands of time and YouTube videos that you can look up one day if you randomly remember, hey, that game Redfall, remember how bad that was at launch? That's all it's going to become because we couldn't get a little bit of extra time to get the offline update out. Look, again, I'm not one of those Redfall apologists that I sometimes see online where they go, actually, it's quite good now. It's an enjoyable game. Miss me with that. But for real, this deserved this update just to preserve it. It deserves to exist like any game, because we are doomed to repeat our history if we continue to bury it over and over and then forget it and then repeat it once more. It's, as someone who's a staunch believer in game preservation, it's incredibly frustrating to see us continue to walk down this path of ignoring preserving software. Again, I understand server costs. I understand if you don't want to keep it online, but for God's sakes, you could play Marvel Avengers offline. Come on, man. Like, this is ridiculous. And look, even something like Babylon's Fall, a game that I also thought was really bad, even though I love Platinum Games, that should still be up and running. We can't just make these online games. Oh, shucks, didn't work. We just spent 4 years making this thing and, yep, see ya, gone. Check out a YouTube video if you're interested in what it was. No, like, you look behind me at my collection, right? These are games I can pull off the shelf at any time, put the disc in my PlayStation, Xbox, GameCube, whatever system comes to mind, put the cartridge in and load that bad boy up. It is not forgotten to time. One of the major questions coming out of yesterday's news is, why is this happening? You don't just make these changes if things are going well. We already saw the explanation inside the email, but those emails are crafted with the expectation that it's going to leak everywhere. One of the primary suspects in this case is Game Pass. Game Pass is a service I've been a big advocate of ever since it was first announced, saying it was going to change the industry. And I was right for many reasons that were good, but now many reasons that are bad. I was right in that it was going to change how games were distributed. I was right in how this was a service that was going to change how we consume games. It gives people more access. It invalidates reviews. It lets you be in the driver's seat more. I think all of that is great for gaming, beyond the obvious in that you save money with the games that you're playing. But the bad, I did not consider then. We've only seen it play out over time. People are not buying games. It's clear that multiple millions of players, which we're seeing for things like Starfield, which we're seeing for things like Hi-Fi Rush, is not equating to game sales, despite being fed corporate lies saying that Game Pass is leading to sales. We're not seeing that often enough to maintain certain studios, clearly. If you look very closely at the numbers that we've been sparingly given on Xbox Game Pass, it's not growing much. The last number we got was 33 million subscribers on Game Pass, which sounds great on paper, but that was when it was originally in the mid 20 millions, which also sounded great on paper. But this new figure that they presented during the Xbox business update actually arrived when they had folded in Xbox Live Gold members into Game Pass, which showed that very little of the service had actually grown beyond those new members being folded in. Xbox is struggling dramatically to gain new Game Pass subs, and the stats are showing it beyond that. Matt Piscatella of Circana wrote, growth of the video game subscriptions spending has stalled, according to Circana's Game Markets Dynamics reporting. April 2023 sub spending in US was only 2% higher than April 2022. Finding new subscribers beyond the console ownership base has proven very difficult thus far. And now here we are in 2024 where he says, and it's still stalled. March 2024 non-mobile video game subscription spending was only up 1% versus the April 2023 figures that got me to post the below last year. This is a really bad sign. Why is that? Xbox just had a massive year of things pumped into Game Pass, to be fair. Excluding Redfall, you had a lot of great games dropped into Game Pass, not just in first party, but third party as well. Focusing on first party, you got Hi-Fi Rush, you got Forza Motorsport, you got Starfield, which was like your most hyped game of the generation thus far. And that clearly wasn't enough to move the needle. Even though Starfield was said to move the most Game Pass subscriptions in a single day, that didn't lead to any more growth than a single % from last year. That's really bad, not only for subscription retention, but also clearly growth, which is why I think these moves are being made. Game Pass is not growing. The bet was there, and I think they were smart to take that bet because Xbox was losing. They had to change their business model. But it's also because the way that they identify success is now dramatically shifting with Activision in fold. When you look at all the major shifts that have happened in Xbox, it occurred with Activision joining the company. This is where they started doing the multi-platform strategy. This is where they did all of the layoffs. This is where they've done the studio shutdowns, all of it after Activision. And the focus in the email is on apparently big IP, high profile IP, which my only sort of rationale for what happened yesterday, where you have Hi-Fi Rush being called this breakout hit in all key metrics and measurements and expectations, and then the studio making it get shut down, is that there is this new level for success, likely guided by Call of Duty, likely guided by Fallout, that these other smaller titles could never hope to reach, so just shut them down is the answer. And you already see a extreme lack of marketing for Hellblade 2. It got a ton of trailers, but then you learn it's like a 6 to 10 hour game and recognize, oh, they have very little left to show after all of these trailers that they probably should have held off on. And now we're 2 weeks from launch and nothing. And this is the exact type of game that Xbox is moving away from, which I think sends a scary message to companies like Ninja Theory. I even worry about my beloved Obsidian, man. Like, they love the AA spirit. Avowed is very AA in spirit. You have games like The Outer Worlds 2, which I think are going to be AA in spirit. You have Grounded, and they're moving that team onto something new. Like, this is a company that has a AAA size and scale and budget afforded to them, but they spend it on a bunch of smaller middle tier projects that I think work out really well for them. So I wonder if Xbox is going to start mandating, like, hey, enough of this experimenting stuff. You're going to make New Vegas too. I mentioned execs defending execs. We have Mike Ibarra, who was formerly the president at Blizzard. He had been let go in all of the layoffs that happened across Activision Blizzard at the top of this year, defending Phil, saying that he's seeing a lot of shots at Phil over today's Xbox announcements. I get it, but knowing him as a human, I know this hurts him as much as anyone else. I can't speak for all the leadership there, but I do know him, and I do know what he's likely going through. I'm not trying to defend the decisions. I think we all get ourselves into situations that are tough and unexpected. Certainly I have. It's part of the job, as is the accountability for the outcomes, but he's a good human and he cares deeply for the creative process and developers. That's my firsthand experience in working closely with him for 8+ years and knowing him for over 24. I 100% understand the anger and confusion, and I feel deeply sorry for those teams impacted today and over the last few months. I didn't agree with every decision he made at Xbox, and I think that was pretty clear, but I do believe in his product leadership, and I know how hard these decisions can be. Xbox could have a very bright future. I hope they are able to realize it, and all of the teams have an incredible experience together. It's certainly a tough time that needs great clarity into what the plan ahead is and how gamers everywhere can be excited for it. Look, I have no doubt Phil Spencer is a great dude, but his feet need to be held to the fire at this point. His, Matt Booty, Sarah Bond, Aaron Greenberg, the list goes on. There has to be accountability. I look at it as a sports fan. I'm wearing a Mets shirt, right? We talked about the Mets yesterday. I look at it like a sports team. When you are in a results-based business, it's not the talent that pays first. It is the coach of the team. How many times have we seen a team that's very good is struggling, and then they fire the current manager, they bring in a new manager or coach to replace them, and the team figures it out. There's a new spark there. All I'm saying is, if we're in a results-based business and you're taking down companies because they're not getting the results you want, then why does that same logic not apply to the people who are making these orders, these mandates, organizing these companies, and not getting the results in the first place? I get where Mikey Barr is trying to come from, but this CEO, coddling CEO shit, just... blech, gross. All right, we got one last bit of news here. Perfect Dark isn't going as smoothly as it should be at Xbox. This is from Pure Xbox, are they right? This started with Jeff Grubb over at Giant Bomb, who stated yesterday that based on what he's heard, the game has been in a rough state and still sounds like it is in a very rough state. Here's the quote. I have been hearing more and more, been hearing for years that Perfect Dark is in a rough state. Sounds like it is in a very rough state. And it doesn't sound like it's really come together in any way since it was first announced, and like Crystal Dynamics coming on board to help on that. Shinobi 602 has backed that up, saying it lines up, we'll see. And Alex Donaldson, who is the owner of RPG Site, says, I have some crazy stories about the development of that game I have not put into print out of respect for a team really trying to push a boulder up a steep hill, but my patience is getting thin. Many people will think I'm just bringing this up to continue to dunk on Xbox because I know how fanboy minds work, but I'm literally bringing this up to show, again, the inconsistencies I talked about yesterday. Xbox's logic with letting these teams go just does not line up with the past problems of their prior teams. Technically, 343 should be shut down. Technically, the initiative should be shut down. If we're in a results-based business, they're not getting results, they're spinning away, wasting budget, wasting time, wasting IP. These companies should not exist today by their logic. Am I advocating for it? Hell no. I want them all to stick around. I want to see Perfect Dark come out. I want to see Halo thrive under 343. I want to also see Arcane Austin get a second chance, just like Bethesda Game Studios got with Fallout 76, like Machine Games got with Wolfenstein Youngblood. Both those teams got second chances. I'd like to see Tango continue to build in what was apparently a breakout hit. I would love to see them continue to build that legacy when, after years of trying with Evil Within, kind of breaking through, it was an amazing game, a hidden gem really, you finally get something in Hi-Fi Rush that everyone loves, everyone's celebrating, and you shut them down. Again, by Xbox's logic, these companies and these projects should just cease to exist, but they don't. And this is a problem with Xbox in general, the ability to identify key talent. Look at the layoffs that happened at the top of the year. They laid off key Call of Duty staff. That is their golden goose now. They laid off key Call of Duty staff. Think about that. That's who they're laying off. And now they're shutting down studios that were delivering them brand new experiences that could help them grow the platform in the future, with especially this new multi-platform direction. Felt like the sky was the limit for all of these teams to just sell their games everywhere. But that's it. That's the end of their story. It's just inconsistent. It doesn't add up. And so there we are at the end of the video. I'm looking forward to hearing your thoughts on it down below. Please do fire away. Other than that, take excellent care of yourselves. Have a better day than Xbox is having, and I'll see you in the next video. Stay sexy, stay active. I love you all. Peace.